And welcome to the Unhinged Vibes Podcast with your host. My name is Caramel Thunder, and I'm here with...
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Coastal, a.k.a. Coast Dynasty on Instagram, a.k.a. Coast Malone, a.k.a. introducing the Coast Face Killer.
Oh.
That's it. You know what?
Good.
I'm out of those puns, man. I gotta find more.
Really?
Yeah, maybe get a rhyming dictionary, see what rhymes with coast, because I'm fast running out of ideas.
You're doing good. Honestly, you could probably reuse one or two of them. Like you can rotate them out.
Yeah, well,
right. You can always rotate them out, and I think it'd be fine.
Yeah,
that's good, man. That's good. So how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm very excited to see you live and in color and in person right now.
Right.
Very excited about that today. Really, really interesting, and I'm really excited about today's episode. Before we get into what we're doing with today's episode, I wanted to talk about last week's. I just finished listening to the one with you and Roost.
Oh yeah.
I vehemently disagree with a lot of what he said, but I definitely appreciate his point of view. I thought it was a really interesting and entertaining pod. I hope to see him on a lot more because that was really, really fun to see.
Honestly, like that recording with Rui was actually a lot of fun. It sucked that I had to do it in a car.
Yeah.
Right. So that kind of sucked. But other than that, like I think some points I lost signal and you could hear some silence or some me cutting in and out. But who cares? It's a Talking in Cars episode, so it's fine. It's supposed to be nitty gritty, but it was a fun episode with Rui, man. Can't wait to have him back.
Yeah, the sound quality was less than perfect, but the content quality was there, and that's sort of you kind of want that if you're gonna have an imbalance on one or the other.
Oh yeah,
the content was there, so I was happy to see that. But as for today's episode, we're going to flip the script a little bit. See, we've got you here, and you're the one who's asking us the questions. We've got a Q&A, and you're usually the Q. Today, I'm going to be that, and you're going to be the A. I don't mean that...
yes, I will be the A.
I don't mean that in any derogatory
capital
way. But yeah, we're going to do a little bit of a question and answer with you, get to know you a little bit more, and a subject that's near and dear to your heart.
Yes.
Right, so today, we are going to be talking about Star Trek.
Yes. Very much so.
The final frontier.
Yes.
So,
or for us, it'll be our first frontier because there'll be more frontiers after that, I'm assuming.
I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on this. I myself am I would say maybe a novice fan. I've enjoyed everything that I've taken in that has been Star Trek related, but I have not delved into the world as deep as I would like. And maybe you can help me and help our audience sort of if they're in the same position that I'm in where they're interested to see where to go, but there's such a vast library already of things out there that, you get a little bit lost in the weeds. It's almost like that the Netflix dilemma that you have where you turn it on and you want to watch something, but then you've got 50 things staring at you in the face, and then you just end up putting on a Seinfeld rerun.
Exactly.
Putting on a YouTube video. So today, Star Trek Q&A with my boy, El Jefe of the podcast, the big boss, Caramel Thunder. So, in terms of Star Trek, what initially drew you to Star Trek?
I think the first initial thing that drew me to Star Trek was the whole space and ships kind of thing, right? Okay. I don't know why, but like watching those shows and like I always loved the look of the ships and how they fought in space and the tactics and what the crew did to survive and this and that. So for me, it's more of like, it was just being, I would love to be there and just experience that because I think it'd be the coolest thing ever, right? It's very hard for me to explain, but it's for me, it's the whole experiencing new things that you've never experienced before, seeing things you've never seen before, discovering new species, new worlds, this and that. So the big thing about Star Trek is exploration and science. I was about to
say that. I was just saying,
right?
It sounds like that's the exploration.
That's the really biggest thing. It's the fighting and the ship battles and this and that is just a cherry on top. But all that exploration and science really kind of interested me. I always thought Star Trek was kind of boring. Like when I was a huge but am a huge fan of Star Wars, right? Yeah. Because Star Wars, it says in the name, war. Yeah. Right. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of conflict, and Star Trek is not really like that. And that's not really like that. And when I looked upon Star Trek, I was like, oh man, this is kind of like sci-fi frou-frou kind of deal, right? It's just like a space opera. Like I didn't really look into it. So that was like before I actually like watched the first movie I saw or got into it. But now it's just like, man, this is really cool. Like having that, it's not really like a military, it's more of a society of people who necessarily don't need currency anymore because everyone has food, so no one's hungry.
No one's left wanting for anything.
Yeah, it's not. They work because they love what they do, right? And essentially, Star Trek or Starfleet is the best of the best of what the Federation can offer. So not just Earth, but any planet that's part of the Federation. They are the best people. They are the
A-team, the all-star team.
Yes, the A-team. They're the smartest. They are the bravest. They are the keen mind. They want to explore. They want to expand. And for me, it's like, I hope that we can get to that in my lifetime, which I know we can't. But I would love to get to the point where we are exploring new things. We are seeing new worlds, right? Hopefully, we can get a guy to Mars, a guy or girl to Mars, and have a colony up there. I don't know. Like, I think that'd be wicked sweet. I know that there's a lot of fear in regards to that because there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong.
Right.
But for me, it's just it's the what if. It's like, oh man, that's so cool. Space, no one knows a lot about it. We essentially know the basic science to space, and that's still theoretical.
Right.
That's not actually proven. I don't think
it's not practical yet. Right.
It's very much theoretical. So I can't wait till there comes a day where space is like swimming for us. It's just like our backyard.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see that. It's almost like a utopian society. Everybody's sort of pulling in the right direction, right? Everybody's pulling in that same direction. And then the conflicts happen when you run into other races who aren't of that, like other species who don't pull in that direction. And that's a really interesting thing. I wanted to ask you, maybe talk to me a little bit about how you got into and what initially sort of brought you into Star Trek. We know what interests you about Star Trek and what pulled you in. Where did you get your start? Because the thing is, I mean, and we've alluded to this before. Yeah. There's a bit of a generational gap between you and I. I am old enough where I can sort of jokingly call you a youngin.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, you're not a child by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. You're a full-fledged adult, but I mean, you are definitely significantly younger than me. But Star Trek started in the 1960s.
Oh yeah.
So it is a really old series. I'd imagine that younger Caramel Thunder, when he first started going into Star Trek, didn't think, oh, hey, you know what, let me pull up this television series from 1966, starring Captain Kirk and Spock and, a bunch of people who have since passed on. It's such an old show. So talk to me a little bit about sort of maybe what initially brought you in. What are the first shows, and then what pulled you into the entire world? Like you said, you're interested in the entire world and the universe of Star Trek. What was your first step into this? Like, what introduced you into Star Trek universe? My first baby step was watching the J.J. Abrams Kelvin movie. Oh, okay. Right? Like the first Star Trek movie that was made, I believe, somewhere in 2000. Somewhere in 2000. So after that movie, though, I did not get hooked after that movie. It was actually during COVID. Oh, really?
It's actually during COVID.
So it's real recent.
It's actually real recent where that's when I actually dove into the deep end of it. Okay. So before COVID, I just watched the movies, Star Trek Into Darkness and Star Trek Beyond, the recent ones. And I love his take on Star Trek because it's very flashy lights. It's a lot of action. You can tell that he took inspiration from Star Wars and from other action movies and put it in because there's a lot more flash. There's a lot more bang in those movies where in comparison to the other Star Trek movies and the original Star Trek movies and even the TV shows, there's not that much flash and bang. This is very action oriented. Yeah. And you can tell. And that's what got me interested in it. But when COVID happened, that's when I popped up Netflix. I'm like, I'll watch these Star Trek movies again. Okay, cool. So I put them on, watched all three, whatever else. And then I was like, what else? And then it says that when you finish something, it says recommend, right? And it just shows three things. And it showed like three different Star Trek options. So I was like, you know what? I remember watching Star Trek The Next Generation with Jean-Luc Picard. Yep. Right? With Sir Patrick Stewart. Way back when with my grandma and this and that. So I'm like, you know what? I'll watch it again. I'll see how it is. I'll see if it holds up. Yeah. Right? So I started watching the Next Generation, and like the first season was very off. And you can ask any Star Trek fan. Season 1 of maybe even season 2 of the Next Generation was kind of slow, was kind of boring. There wasn't really a plot line to it, right? But then when you hit season 3 and onward, that's when it really picks up. Okay. That's when it really picks up.
I will say that I did watch, as I was growing up, I would watch the occasional Star Trek episode, and it was always Next Generation that was on. And I did enjoy the episodes that I see, because they were good enough to stand alone, that you didn't need to know a whole lot of background information to enjoy the episode that you're watching. So that I did go back just prior to COVID, when I was working out, I would go to the gym and I would throw on an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, and I wanted to get through it as well. There is a lot of Wesley Crusher in the first season.
Yeah, I know.
A lot.
I know.
Of Wes Crusher.
I know. And like he disappears like in the middle seasons, and then he comes back, and then he disappears. But like a lot of people hate on Wesley Crusher.
It's good to know that I'm not sort of when I was thinking that it's not off, because I was like, I don't remember people talking about him being as central of a character as he is here, because he's not. Okay.
He's not.
All right, that's a little reassuring for me.
How I see it, Wesley Crusher was our eyes and ears, right?
Okay, yeah.
Right, he was our eyes and ears, and like in the first episode, I believe, it was very clear that Jean-Luc Picard, the ship before he had the USS Enterprise, there were no family members on it. It was just crew. Crew. So he clearly stated that he's not used to being on a ship with family members, and especially kids.
Yeah.
And he doesn't like kids.
Yeah.
And he clearly states that in the first episode. So when he meets Wesley, he doesn't really give a shit about him.
Yeah.
Right? And because of that opinion, and that's what you see, that's what everyone, I guess, portrays on Wesley, is we don't give a shit about Wesley. Yeah. And it kind of stuck for like the long haul, essentially. But yeah, no, like the first 2 seasons are slow. The writing is sometimes off, whatever else, but there's still very good stories. Season 3 onward, that's where it hits hard. And after I watched TNG and I finished it, I was like, oh man, that's 9 seasons. Like, what's next? Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, cool. I searched up online, like, okay, technically what's next would be after TNG would be DS9, Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
Perfect. Boom. Popped on Deep Space Nine. Then I popped on Voyager. Then I popped on the Enterprise, which is the prequel to everything. Mm-hmm. And then after Enterprise, I believe I watched...
Now we're onto the new stuff now, right?
Yep. The Discovery, all that stuff. So all the new stuff after that. And like I'm like up to date with all the new stuff because it's all coming out.
Okay.
But by far, like... my favorite would be DS9, 100% DS9.
Wow. Okay.
My most nostalgic would be The Next Generation, but by far my favorite would be DS9, and it's because it takes Star Trek in a different direction where we're not used to. Because when you think of Star Trek, you think of ships.
Yeah.
100%. The main character is the ship. The next character is the captain and then the crew.
Yeah.
DS9... there is no ship, at least in the beginning. There is no ship. It is a station, essentially in the final frontier, in the borders, and there's war, and there's strife, and there's fear, and it's a nitty-gritty, more of a modern-style show, but way back when.
Right.
And it's my favorite because it dealt with... all Star Trek series deal with modern day issues. They deal with every problem you can think of, and they do it in a way that's very clever because they don't actually have a human have that problem based with humans. They have it based with other races.
Okay, so the stories are sort of that science fiction sort of stretch out there, but they're relatable.
They're very much relatable, and DS9 took that to a whole new level. Like it's honestly, it's very good, and that's kind of my journey. And I kind of watched the original series. By kind of, I mean like I watched 20 episodes. I was like, I actually can't do this. And I actually did not finish the whole original series.
That was going to be my next question, is because you speak really highly of TNG, DS9, right? was going to ask you next is, did you actually go all the way back to the OG, the one that started it all?
I watched a few episodes, but like,
you can tell the budget's not there.
It's very hard for me to watch it. It's very hard for me to watch it because yes, the budget, the writing. I do understand that I should be watching it because of the story and because of the history of it. But like, it's very hard for me to pay attention with it.
Well, and very, very, very few shows from the 1960s are going to hold up.
Oh,
to today's mirror, especially 2021's mirror, right?
Yes.
Like a lot of shows, especially ones that are going to take on what are topical issues, and they're going to do the whole thing where they try to make it relatable and to try to relate a story to current events. That's a tough one for something that happened in 1968, 67. Yeah. To still look like it would be relevant to today, and not just relevant, but to kind of even have the right sightline or the right sort of point of view for it.
But you know what? Even though it was made in the 60s or whatever else, it still holds up.
Okay,
it still does hold up. Like I believe the OG Star Trek, I believe they had the first interracial kiss on television or something like that. Right. So I think. The fact that they were breaking ground back then is absolutely amazing.
Yep.
And a lot of the people that I heard that were actors in the TNG, DS9's, Voyager, and all the new shows, Discovery, Picard, and all that stuff, they watched the OG Star Trek growing up, and they were the inspirations.
Okay.
Of them wanting to be an actor or whatever else. Because I know Whoopi Goldberg, when she got hired to go on The Next Generation, they specifically made a character for Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh, okay.
Specifically made a character for Whoopi Goldberg because she asked to be on Star Trek because the lady who played Uhura way back when in the original series, Whoopi saw her as, I guess, her surrogate in the filming industry. She was a black woman in space, and Whoopi wanted, I guess, to fill those shoes of being a black woman in space and being a role model and being a second guidance counselor, right?
Yeah.
So Whoopi found inspiration in, I don't know her name, I forget her name actually, but she was Uhura in the OG Star Trek, and she saw herself in Uhura, and that's how she came into Star Wars. And I didn't know that until I saw an interview of her. I'm like, wow, that's wicked sweet. Like I didn't know that. That's so cool. Like I didn't know that they touched a lot of people like that.
Well, representation is super important, right? And when we've seen that, and we see that more and more, especially today, that is the one thing that I am really liking about today's sort of pop culture. Like when we were growing up, you read the comics, every dude's a white dude, right? And now we're seeing stuff like we see Shang-Chi, we see Black Panther. Yeah. And that stuff's important. It is important for the younger kids. And I was telling Ali this one out when we were discussing stuff, that because he would ask me like, why is Shang-Chi such a big deal? It's like, dude, I told you, like my idol growing up was Bruce Lee, because he was the only guy who even remotely looked like me, who was a hero and was the protagonist of stories, and he died 7 years before I was born. Yeah. So yeah, it is really cool to see that, and I think that was a Gene Roddenberry influence, right? The creator of Star Trek. He
wanted a utopian society. He wanted everyone to be equal.
Yeah, and in a utopian society, there is no judgment for who you are, and I think that's really important. I think that's one of the important lessons that Star Trek really teaches, and really sort of influences in a lot of the shows that at least I've seen. Like I said, I've only vaguely dipped my toe in the water, but that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed about the show for the pieces that I've seen. Yeah,
and like now it's even evolving to, like the new shows, they're evolving to everyday issues now. Like with the whole non-binary, transgender, all that stuff, right? All that stuff's in the show now.
Yeah, okay.
It's crazy to think how much Star Trek has evolved in regards to kind of tackling everyday issues, and how they're not ashamed to tackle those issues.
Well, it's funny that on the one hand, it is a bit of a more modern spin, but at the same time, it's also a lot of classic what Star Wars did, right? It's just, free of judgment, and that, it's about how you treat people. It's that Prime Directive, right? It's you don't interfere in other people's sort of pursuit of their happiness if they're not, so long as they're not, harming anyone else, right? And I think that's even the protagonist or the what's the word I'm looking for? The sort of the direction may change.
Yes.
Right. But the overarching theme of it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question here. So, speaking of the Prime Directive,
Right.
the Prime Directive is essentially you do not interact with any world or species pre-warp.
Yes.
And you don't influence them. You don't do nothing. Right. Yep. And that's one of the rules that they set out so that they don't kind of they don't accelerate someone's progress in regards to technology.
Yep.
Right. They only contact them after they see that they have discovered warp or are able to do warp.
Yep.
Now, if you were in a captain's shoes and you saw a world that is not warp capable, right?
Yeah.
But over, let's say 200 billion lives would die. And you had a seat to it, but you technically could not do anything about it. Would you just watch them?
That's tough, right?
Would you watch them?
That's always the tough question that you have to ask someone, and it's and that's always the juxtaposition of a lot of the captains. And apparently, like that. Now I have not watched a lot of Star Trek, but that tends to be a lot of what a lot of the conflict is, right? It's sort of the Prime doing the right thing versus following your orders, right?
Do you follow your morals or do you follow the Prime Directive?
Yeah,
do you follow your orders?
And that's the thing, right? Is that I'd like to think I do the right thing, but also at the same time, I'm a classic rules follower.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I think I follow the Prime Directive, and that's awful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how, I think that eats at me for a long time, but yeah, I'm a classic rules follower. So I think that's, I got to the captain's, if I got to the captain's chair by following rules and sort of, ensuring that we do things in the structured way that we have set out to do them. I don't know if I veer off that path.
Yeah.
I'd like to hope that, I don't know, man. I don't know, because I want to think I do the right thing too, right?
Let me be honest with you here. Out of all you can watch any of the series and the Prime Directive is always broken.
It always comes up.
So people...
It's repeatedly broken.
Captains want to follow it, but they also follow their gut and they follow their conscience. So sometimes that Prime Directive does get broken.
Okay.
But it gets broken for a good reason. So you're not a good or bad captain if you follow or don't follow the Prime Directive. You're a good captain if you follow your beliefs and your morals.
Okay. And that's what gets you there?
And that's what gets you there.
Okay.
So for you, even if you followed your gut and you didn't want to follow the Prime Directive and you wanted to help these people, you broke the Prime Directive, the number one rule, but I guarantee you, you'll get in trouble, but you won't lose your ship. Yeah,
and you won't. The other thing too is it becomes one of those things where it's like, man, even if I lose my spot, if I keep my spot, but I let 200 billion people die,
is that really worth that seat?
Is it worth it, right? Or do I feel like I deserve this seat?
Yeah,
right. Because the entire ship and its people entrust their safety to me.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, if I'm making decisions where I can wantonly allow billions of lives to have been lost without doing anything to try to help, I don't know if I deserve that spot anymore.
Right. So. It's honestly, when it comes to that, it's very hard, and you'll see a lot of episodes that deal with the moral situation of being a Starfleet, Starfleet pilot, captain, doctor, whatever. They really go through the whole, are you doing the right thing?
And a lot of people in their day-to-day jobs have to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
Do I follow the rules or do I do the right thing? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, touching back to when you said the show's relatable, that it takes, sort of otherworldly problems, but sort of relates them to things you see at home. And they do that super well. That's the sort of juxtaposition that they have there. And it's really interesting. So it's good to know that is something that happens often.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about this, and Now, you did mention you have watched, well, let's say most of the OG Star Trek.
Yeah, most of them, yes.
And you watched all of TNG. You went through DS9,
Yep.
Voyager, and Enterprise.
Yep.
Right? Let me ask you. Okay, maybe this might be sort of an easy answer now. Because I was going to ask you, which one did you like better, the OG or Next Generation? You did sort of answer that question. So let me ask you this in a different way.
Okay.
Taking, let's say, the main shows. So we're not going to talk about the animated series. You didn't watch the animated series at all.
No, I didn't watch it, no.
Yeah, okay. So we'll take Star Trek, The New Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. We'll take those 5.
Yeah.
Rank those 5 in order of which ones are your favorite, and then maybe talk to me a little bit as to why. We do know that DS9 is number 1 for you.
Yep.
Maybe give us 2 to 5, and give us a little bit of insight as to why they're ranked that way.
So yeah, like I said, number 1 would be Deep Space Nine. Only because but number 1, it was the first Star Trek show to have a colored captain. To have a colored captain. So Captain Sisko, right? You got it, Captain Sisko. Now, Captain Sisko is different than the other captains because Captain Sisko is not afraid to bend the rules.
Okay.
He's not afraid to, spoilers, he's not afraid to commit genocide for the benefit of Starfleet. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He portrayed one of the things that the actor who played Sisko, Captain Sisko, one of the things that that made him agree to playing this role was that he was playing a loving father, a loving black father on television, where at that time that wasn't really the case, where usually the dad wasn't in the picture.
Yeah.
Right? But this one, they wanted him to play a loving father to a son who was growing up and who wanted to give his son the world, and who raised him right, and who loved him to death and wanted to do everything for his son. So he wanted to do that to give other people in that situation hope and love about that's like being there, right?
Yeah,
not having a father, whatever else. He wanted to show that a black man can be just as loving as anyone else.
It's funny. The actor who plays him is actually Avery Brooks.
Oh, he's amazing, dude.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because I've seen, I don't know if I've seen a whole lot of Deep Space Nine. I do always remember seeing the commercials and seeing him.
Yeah.
And he always looked like a no-nonsense sort of. Yeah. You
don't fuck with him.
Yeah. He looks like a guy that, you don't fuck around with. And where I remember him from is actually, if you've ever seen the movie American History X.
Oh, no, I haven't.
You haven't?
I haven't, no.
Oh, man, you gotta get on. Okay, so next time you're on Netflix, American History X.
It's on Netflix?
It's an amazing, I hope so. But
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, it's another one of those, how have you not seen that? And then I remember, you're like 3. You're 3 when this rated R movie came out. So maybe there's a reason you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, he plays the principal in that movie. And he was very much a no-nonsense because he was dealing with sort of a younger high school student who is starting to become a little more fascinated with neo-Nazi
with
stuff.
like far right stuff.
Yeah, so it becomes a little bit like, how does he deal with that, not just as the principal looking at a student who is reading some hate material, but also as a black man dealing with a younger child who is looking at Nazi literature.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting, and he did a fantastic job in that. And I don't remember anything. I don't remember what else I've seen him in. I remember seeing him in another television show. I want to say like Boston Legal or something.
Yeah.
And something along those lines. City name, job occupation. Right.
Yeah.
Chicago Fire. Something like that. And he was really good in it too. So yeah, I think I would be really interested in him as on Deep Space Nine. Sorry, I digress.
No, honestly, I think Deep Space Nine would be number 1. Also because like in that show, there's a lot of topics about war and the mortality of war. Like, are you a good person if you do this?
Okay.
Right? If you do this, you're killing thousands of people, but you're doing it for your side. But is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Committing genocide for your side.
Yeah. Like,
is that good? Is that bad? Like they go through all these topics, and it's not just that, but also other stuff. But they focus on very much on morality and mortality, and is it right to do something? Am I a good guy? Am I a bad guy? One of the episodes in Deep Space Nine is literally Captain Sisko sitting down on a couch, and every single show it usually starts with like the captain's log.
Yes.
Right? Captain's log, star date, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. We are in the Orion system. We are exploring a new system. There has been a distress call, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. This one, he starts off with captain's log, star date, blah, 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 Captain Sisko. And then he goes into a whole monologue of him going through all of the shit that he's done.
Oh, wow.
Not, like, literally numbering off all the shit that he's done that, like, essentially, like, murder, right? Like, genocide, this and that. And he's like, am I doing this because of Starfleet, or am I a good guy, and this and that? And, like, I highly recommend you, if you're going to watch any episode, like, if you're just going to watch one episode, I do recommend you watching that. Okay. Because it's literally him on a couch doing a whole monologue, and like you see like bits and snippets of like other things, right? Like of how shit happens, but how he acts it and how he does the ending was like, wow. Like it was very strong. It was very emotional. I was like, good on him. Like you could tell he's a theater actor. You can 100% tell he's a theater actor because he stole the show, and like because of that one episode too, like it really puts it up on my list. Okay. Right after that, I actually would have to say it'd be a tie between Enterprise and TNG. Okay. It'd be a tie between Enterprise and TNG. So Enterprise is the prequel to all the Star Trek stuff. So essentially is when they're in the baby steps of warp.
Okay, right? So it's like Earth has just discovered warp.
Yeah, they just discovered warp. This might be like 20 years or 30 years past that point or something like that. So they have a capable warp ship. And there's no phasers. All their guns are like still mounted on the thing, and they're still, everything is brand new to them. Everything's brand new to them, right?
So even everything like the Starfleet Academy and Prime
all that
Directive,
stuff. They don't even beam each other to the ships.
Oh wow!
Right? They literally shuttle each other, right? The only thing that they beam would be like supplies and this and that. They even made a joke, I believe, in the first episode. It was like, oh yeah, our transporters can finally transport goods over. He's like, oh man, I would hate to be in a transport when that happens. Like, yeah, trust me, we haven't even tried that yet, or whatever else. I was like, so it's like way before that, right? So I think it'd be Enterprise and TNG, and then TNG is because of one, Jean-Luc Picard, the ship itself, the Enterprise, the ship itself, also like the introduction of the Borg, Worf, Data, Geordi, like the whole cast is absolutely amazing. And then right after those two, which would be my second and third pick, kind of tied, would probably be Voyager. Okay. Right? Because Voyager kind of expanded more on the Borg mythology. They were kind of stuck in... essentially, the plot is they get teleported to a whole new sector, and it's going to take them like 80 years or something like that to get back to home. So they have to find a way to get back home. And that's essentially what the whole Voyager arc is.
Hence the name Voyager.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then after that would be the original series. Right. And that, of course, that list is not including all the brand new shows or whatever else.
We just wanted to sort of go over that's
like the OG stuff, OG stuff on that you can actually find on Netflix.
Yeah, and that already has a definitive ending, right?
Oh, because 100%.
Like you said, we want to give the new show some space and some time to sort of develop and turn into what they're going to turn into, whether that be bad or good, right? But like you said, for a lot of TNG fans, that the first two seasons were a little rough, and that they don't really find their footing until season 3. And a lot of shows really don't find what they want to be until later on, right?
And I'm going to tell you right now, all the shows are like that. The first two seasons are rough. It doesn't matter what show you watch. The first two will always be rough. But once you get past the first two, like the ship sails. It's good.
It's just about sort of understanding what works and what doesn't, and what storylines and I will say that the show I'm most familiar with is the New Generation, and then I have started watching Discovery. But I mean, outside of that, TNG specifically, what I personally really enjoy about is not just the captain, because the captain's the GOAT.
Oh yeah,
I love Jean-Luc Picard, but I really really like the supporting cast. I find myself really gravitating towards a lot of them, and I want to maybe you talk to me a little bit about that. Is that something that is sort of consistent show to show that it isn't just about the captain, that there is a rotating cast of characters that are going to be really, really resonant.
Yeah. So other than the ship being the main character and then the captain being essentially the supporting character, the show is all about the supporting cast. It's all about the crew. It's all about that bridge crew. Yeah. It doesn't matter what show you pick, honestly. Yeah. Even my like less popular one, Voyager, in regards to like quality of show, they all have an amazing supporting cast. Yeah. Right? Because each show is actually going to delve into the history and the thoughts and the morals of every single person on that deck.
Okay.
Every single one. And like you actually learn to love every single person. It doesn't matter what show it is. Yeah. So honestly, yes, you have the captain, which is always going to be at the forefront, but like you fall in love with the cast very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly. And the fact that like TNG, you're going to fall in love with everybody in the supporting cast.
Yeah, I'm a big Counselor Troy.
Right? Counselor Troy is amazing. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Data and Geordi.
Yep. Yeah,
right? Big fan of Data and Geordi. They're like, they have a little brotherly love going on, right? Like they're like best friends at the end of it. So it's very like every show has a good supporting cast. Even some of the new shows too. A lot of them have very good supporting casts. Very good.
All right. So I mean, we talked about the shows and they're phenomenal and they're they're the reasons for a lot of what the Star Trek fandom is all about. But we do also know that there have been, what are we looking at? 15? I want to say 13. There have been 13 Star Wars movies. So maybe you've talked about how the Kelvin movie, the Kelvin trilogy, is sort of what first brought you in and pulled you into the Star Trek universe. Maybe talk to me not just about Kelvin, but what are your sort of experiences and sort of memories surrounding the other 10. The other 10 Star Trek movies. So we've got the 6 OG movies, and then we got the 4 that center around the TNG cast.
So essentially the 6 OG movies I watched a long time ago. I don't really remember much about them. Yeah. It was at a point where I didn't really care about Star Trek at that point.
Okay.
So I don't really have much an opinion. All I know is that I do want to go back and rewatch them. The TNG ones, the 4 TNG ones, the Generation, First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis. I rewatched those recently, actually, and I really like those movies. I really like those movies. Spoiler alert: they love to destroy the Enterprise. I don't know why, but they love to destroy the Enterprise.
Well, they got to do something big for the movie,
exactly, right? So that's why they always upgrade the ship, because they always love to destroy the Enterprise.
I have seen it was a while ago, but I have seen Insurrection and Nemesis, and I did really enjoy
those.
Very
good movies.
I was actually very surprised when I was looking online. I was trying to do a little bit of, not too much, but I tried to do a little bit of background study before leading into any of the podcasts that we do. And I was surprised to learn that the Nemesis was not well received by most people. And I thought, well, no, I enjoyed that movie, but I guess, I mean, maybe if I'm coming from it as someone who's just watching a movie versus a fan of Star Trek.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why, and it might be something that I might have to revisit after if I dip my toes into some of the other stuff.
Yeah. But so like overall, watching it from a moviegoer standpoint, the movies are really well done. Yeah. Maybe watching it from a Star Trek standpoint, you will see the flaws.
Okay.
But other than that, like I think they're very much enjoyable watches. Yeah. I can easily just marathon them all and have fun with them. Because you were watching your family on TV. Like once you watch TNG, like the actual show, and you watch these movies, like you learn and grow with these people, and you understand why they're making these decisions. And you're like, this is just a fun ride for me. This is good. I really like this. This is really good, right? So that's how I see those movies. But when it came to the Kelvin ones, it was more like amazing visuals, big, beautiful ships. The bridges were like all immaculate lighting, the phaser action, everything was just like wow.
You know? I mean, I haven't seen any of the Kelvin movies, but the action pieces. Yeah,
you should, because I think you would love the action in the Kelvin movies, man. I'm gonna tell you right now, like even the opening action scene, oh man, was absolutely breathtaking. How they filmed it.
Yeah.
Right? Like me and you, we nitpick like YouTube videos, the production value, how the lighting is, this and that, right? So if you look at it with that lens of like the framing of shots and this and that, and the scoring of the soundtrack to whatever's going on, like I think it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. They hit the right notes at the right time. How they portray space and the threat and the death and this and that is just absolutely, it's scary, but it's also very nice to watch. I think you should watch the first Star Trek one, the Kelvin Star Trek one. Okay. Because I think you'd really like it. And then after that, if you want to watch the Into Darkness with Doctor Strange in it, and then the Star Trek Beyond.
Yeah, well, it was funny because I'm looking here, and again, back into doing a little bit of background research before the podcast, I had noticed that the director of Star Trek Beyond isn't J.J. Abrams, it's Justin Lin.
Yep.
As in Fast and Furious is Justin Lin. So, I mean, if he's got it, but I will say that I did know Justin Lin prior to that because he was the director of a movie called Better Luck Tomorrow. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
I haven't seen it, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so I do remember him there. So I do know he can do sort of smaller character-driven stuff, right? He isn't just throw Vin Diesel in a car and make him go off a 47th floor, window.
Yeah. And you can tell with his movie, you said it was Beyond, right? Yeah. Beyond, so with that movie, you can tell because, like, yet again, a spoiler, they destroy the Enterprise, and it's very character-centric. Okay. Right? So he played on his strength as a director, and he focused on the characters. So, yeah, it's absolutely great.
Okay. So I know that earlier in the pod you did talk about how you're a Star Wars fan as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Do
you want to do a Star Trek versus Star Wars conversation?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let me ask you something. So maybe let's do a little bit of role playing here. Say I'm a Star Wars fan.
Okay.
So we have shared. Although, as an aside, I digress. I wanted to just quickly talk. I think it was funny that when you were talking about us, sort of pointing out flaws in YouTube videos. It is funny that you use the word nitpicking, but I digress.
Yeah, exactly, right?
But back to my little inside joke there. Back to my original point. I'm a Star Wars fan. Sell me. I've never watched Star Trek. All I know about it is the sort of toxic Star Wars versus Star Trek fandom stuff. So sell me on Star Trek. You know that I like Star Wars. What about Star Trek can we find common ground on?
So in regards to common ground, one, the action.
Okay.
Right? In regards to action, it's not lightsaber versus lightsaber, or it's not like your typical action that you are used to in Star Wars where it's a battlefield.
Okay.
Right? It's more ship to ship. It's very intense. It's more personal in Star Trek than it is in Star Wars.
Okay.
Right? Depending which Star Wars you watch.
Right.
Right? It's a little bit more personal, but the action is very good. I would actually have to say the storytelling is actually a lot better in Star Trek than it is in Star Wars, because in Star Trek they kind of focus a little bit more on the characters itself.
Okay.
Like I said, the morality, they try to connect with you, where in Star Wars it's they try to.
The line's pretty clearly drawn as to who's the bad guy.
In Star Trek, you don't really know who's the bad guy. They say like, oh, the Romulans, they're evil, this and that. But if you hear the Romulans speak and talk and this and that, they're doing it just like how Starfleet's doing it. They're doing it because they want to protect their people. They want to. Yeah. So essentially, there's no actual bad guy in Star Trek. It's just different points of view. Where in Star Wars, there's a clear bad guy.
Yeah, they're called the dark side.
Yes, of course, right? Yeah. And like we all know, a good villain is a villain that makes you believe that they are right, or who they think they are right.
Yeah,
that's what makes a good villain.
I've always said the best villains are the ones who think they're the hero of the story.
Yep, exactly, right? And one thing that I think would be another common was if you like space and if you like ships, I think that's it's a good stepping stone into Star Trek.
Okay.
Right? After that, I believe it's a whole different ball game, right? Because Star Wars, you get, let's be honest here, a lot more war, a lot more conflict. There's a lot more backstabbing.
It's a very flawed universe versus
very much flawed. There's slavery going on. Yep. There's a famine. a lot of bad things happen in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right. Where in Star Trek, there's not really a lot of famine, even maybe on worlds that aren't like
As
warp capable, right? But it doesn't really have those problems, but they deal with those problems in a different way through storytelling and not like actual showing you.
Okay.
All that stuff.
Okay, maybe expand a little bit on that. Like, so we had said that, I sell Star Trek to me as a Star Wars fan. Now maybe I'll take on the role of our good buddy Noslin.
Yes.
Who's frequently talked about how he hasn't seen Mandalorian yet,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which again we bug him
Yeah.
all the time. We deservedly make fun of him all
Yes,
the time
100%.
for not having seen Mandalorian
100%.
yet. But he does have a point in terms of why he hasn't seen it. He's Star Wars'd out.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe talk to me about that. Maybe sell me on Star Trek as a guy who is a fan of Star Wars, but it's kind of like, I'm just kind of over the Star Wars universe right now.
Okay, I'll tell you. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
The number one reason why that you'll actually like Star Trek over Star Wars is a lot of the OG shows, and the new shows are not like this. Maybe there are some episodes like this, but it's the OG shows. It doesn't matter what episode you watch; it's its own story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You can watch one episode in one season, watch another episode in another season, and you will get the full story of what they were doing. Where in Star Wars, it's you have to watch episode.
It's a huge commitment.
Depending how you do it, you can do 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9. It's a huge continual story. Not to mention the animated shows; they're all continuing each other's storylines, this and that. So like you can't watch one without the other. Where with Star Trek, it doesn't matter where you start. Essentially, it doesn't matter what season you start either, because it's all contained storyline. And I think it's an easier point to entry when it comes to everything being episodic, because you don't have to watch the 3-4 seasons of Star Trek or 3-4 series of Star Trek that happened before this. No, you can literally pick any series you want
and just get started.
Hit play and just get started, because it starts off fresh.
You know what? Let's expand on that, because that is something that I did want to talk to you about, and I think this is a good spot for it. What is your recommendation? Let's say you've sold us now.
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready to go. Okay, you know what? I want to get into this world of Star Trek.
Okay.
Where do I start?
I have 2 starting points.
Okay.
So you can start with TNG.
Okay.
Right, where it starts off with the Enterprise itself.
Right.
You start off with the Enterprise, you go on from there, and then you go from Enterprise to whatever show you want to do next.
Okay.
Right? Or you can do Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
Deep Space Nine is more nitty gritty. The first episode kind of has a storyline that happened in TNG, but then again, they don't really brush up on it. It's just literally just the first episode. It just tells you why Captain Sisko is at where he's at in life, and then from there, just goes off on his own thing, and you don't really see Jean-Luc Picard anymore.
Okay, so you don't have to watch the first, you don't have to watch the 7 seasons.
No. Like, if you want to watch a DS9, you can literally watch a DS9, forget about Picard, and just focus on the cast.
Okay.
In regards to overall story and crew, I think DS9 would be better. In regards to nostalgia and just Star Trek in general, start off with TNG. So you got 2 avenues. Overall, if I want someone new to get into it, I would say it's very hard. Watch TNG, then Deep Space Nine, and then any of the shows after that, you can pick anyone you want. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Only because I want you to learn the name Enterprise first. I want you to fall in love with the ship Enterprise first.
Okay.
Right? Because essentially when TNG actually came out, they made it to reintroduce a new generation. That's why it's a new generation, right? TNG. So I would say start off with TNG, because it's going to explain a lot of things.
Okay.
It's going to explain more things in a better way in TNG than it would in DS9, even though they still do explain it. But it's a little bit better in TNG.
Okay.
Also, a lot of the characters that are in DS9, they have a starting point in TNG. But even if you start off with Deep Space Nine, you fall in love with them because they go into their story so much more.
Okay, so there's sort of an ancillary character in TNG, and then they expand on them.
100%, right? So honestly, TNG, I would say watch episode 1 of TNG, season 1, episode 1, and then if you want to skip the rest of the season, you can, and then go to season 2, and then go on from there, watch 2 all the way to 9. Because there's a lot of good story points in TNG that literally take place in all the other seasons. Okay. Like, they love to borrow story arcs and enemies from other series and kind of make them their own. Okay. So, like, you see the Borg in TNG, and then you'll see a Borg episode in Voyager, a Borg episode in Deep Space Nine, a Borg episode in... doesn't matter what show it is, right? I guess that
makes sense because, regardless of the crew or the ship that you're on, you're still going to deal with the same races and
100%, right? So I like how they do that, but, like, essentially everything started with TNG.
Yep.
The new generation started with TNG. Yep. So I think TNG would be great first, just to get your feet wet and for you to learn and love the name Enterprise, right? And because you know and you learn why it's a good ship.
Okay.
You know why it is the I guess the main ship in the fleet. Okay. It's the number one ship you want to be on. It's the best of the best in Starfleet on Enterprise, and you see why. Okay. So yeah, I think TNG would be a great starting point. If you don't want to start TNG and you want to go right to the nitty gritty, right to the good stuff. I'm not saying that TNG doesn't have good stuff. It does have good stuff, but for me, the more of like the war, like more Star Wars vibes.
Okay.
Is DS9.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can TNG, then DS9, and then from there go anyone you want.
Whichever way you want.
But if you want to start with the new stuff, I would say do Discovery.
Yeah.
Because Discovery essentially walks your hand through a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Discovery, and then Lower Decks.
Yeah. That's the animated one.
That's the animated one.
Because they're done by the Rick and Morty guys, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Lower Decks is funny if you're a Star Trek fan because there's so many references.
Okay.
So many references in the background in regards to other episodes, other series, this and that, right? I recently just started watching Prodigy. It's the children version of Star Trek, and it's actually a lot of fun. It's actually a really good show.
Okay.
But yeah, honestly, my favorite show right now would probably be Lower Decks. Okay. There is a new show on here that's actually not on your list. It's called Strange New Worlds.
Oh.
So it is a brand new show that's coming out. Now, the original pilot for the OG Star Trek did not have James T. Kirk as the captain.
Oh, okay.
It had, what's his name? Hold up. I'm going to pull up my Star Trek game. I'm going to pull him up. Because he's my captain on one of my ships, but he was the original captain on the Enterprise. Okay, and then they had to recast everybody because the pilot didn't really work out. The only person who stayed was the guy who played Spock.
Oh, okay.
So, let's see here. Load. Speed up. So I got to speed up my ship from repair.
You're on my Wi-Fi, right? I'm gonna be embarrassed if you don't have my Wi-Fi. Or if you're on my Wi-Fi and it's going to slow.
Info. Christopher Pike. There we go. Christopher Pike.
Oh, okay.
Christopher Pike. He's also in the Kelvin movie as well. He's the guy who actually got Kirk to join Starfleet.
Oh, so it's a little bit of an Easter egg.
So it's a little bit of an Easter egg. Christopher Pike was the original captain. Well, he wasn't the original. He was the captain before Kirk, who was on the Enterprise. So this show, if you've seen Discovery, have you seen season 2?
I haven't seen season 2 yet.
Okay.
I'm at the end of season 1.
So essentially, if you want to watch Strange New Worlds, you have to watch Discovery season 1, then season 2, and then Strange New World is a spin-off of the captain in season 2 that joined in. So
cool.
Yeah, it's cool because you see the original Enterprise, the whole shebang, and it's literally them exploring new worlds. Essentially, it's the OG Star Trek, but in a new way.
Oh, okay.
So that's a brand new show that's coming out, I think, really soon, actually. Okay. So yeah, there's one thing that wasn't on here. I was like, oh wait, there's that one show, and I think that's going to be my favorite show because it's cool, man. It's really cool. Yeah.
So I think what I'm getting out of this, or what it seems like, is you're suggesting for anybody who's going to start start with the television show before the movies.
100%.
Okay.
Unless you want to watch the Calvin movies first, like I did,
Yeah.
just so you see the I guess the multi-million-dollar budget.
If you want to see expensive Star Trek.
If you want to see expensive Star Trek, and then go down, and then experience the storylines and this and that, 100%, right? Go right ahead. But essentially, it doesn't matter where you start, as long as you hit play.
Yeah, I guess so, right? I mean,
it doesn't matter where you start, man.
Just you don't start. If you want to swim in it, you got to jump in the pool.
Yep.
Doesn't matter where.
Right? Like with Star Trek, it's easy. With Star Wars, it's a little bit harder because you kind of have to watch in a certain order, at least in one of the many orders that are out there.
Yeah. And I mean, MCU is kind of like that too, right?
Yeah,
like
you kind of have to watch it in order, like phase 1, phase 2. You can't really watch Endgame if you haven't seen Iron Man, the original or whatever.
It just doesn't hit the same, right?
100%, right?
But what you're telling us is that if I start watching Deep Space Nine, like if we end this podcast and I throw Deep Space Nine on
you won't be disappointed. You 100% won't be disappointed.
And I won't be confused, right?
And they explain everything to you. That's one thing I love. Even though they have a bunch of, they like to say science garble, so they love to say big words and whatever else, but essentially means jack all.
Okay.
And then after saying a long-winded sentence of these very big science words and whatever, they just break it down into layman's terms. They're like, oh, okay, so I just got to plug that thing. He's like, yeah, exactly. He's like, okay, cool.
I mean, I like the long science terms.
Me too, right? Exactly. So I honestly, no matter what you pick, you're going to love it. You're going to enjoy it. Just remember, you're going to be there for a long time, because once you hit play, you slowly start to get hooked.
Okay, I think you sold me on Deep Space Nine. I think that's the direction I'm going to go.
It's very good.
Yeah. I just wanted to do a quick sort of rapid fire on a couple of things.
Go right ahead, man.
Before we end this here. I guess one other thing in terms of recommendations. I'm assuming we should watch TNG before we start Picard.
Oh, you can't.
That's one.
That's one of the things where you kind of have to watch TNG in order to watch Picard, because it's essentially a end of his career continuation, and if you don't have the connection to Picard and Data and any of the other people on TNG, Picard's going to be a pointless show for you.
Yeah, because you
100% pointless show for you.
You have to have that heart. You have to understand why Picard means what he means.
Yeah. You need to understand why you love Picard.
Yeah, you have to fall in love with him first before you watch.
100%.
Okay, fair enough.
100%.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean that's what I was thinking too when I saw that. I was like, I got to watch TNG before I start, even though I love Picard and he's of the I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with the captains, but he is sort of the favorite of any of the ones that I'm exposed to.
I'm going to tell you though, like this is going to be my guess and I'm willing to bet on it. You're going to love Picard. Yeah. You're going to absolutely love Picard, and you're going to like Janeway a lot too, because she's like a no holds bar captain as well, the one on Voyager. Archer, you're actually really going to like as well, but I think you're going to love Picard. But Cisco is going to be your favorite.
Oh, okay.
That's my prediction. That's actually my prediction.
You know
you're going to love Picard, but Cisco is going to be your boy.
Let's talk about that for a real quick second. Yeah. Let's talk about that. We got 5 captains, right?
Yeah.
For each of the 5 shows. So we got Captain Kirk, we got Captain Jean-Luc Picard, USS Enterprise. Yep. We got Captain Benjamin Sisko. We got Captain Catherine Janeway, and we got Captain Jonathan Archer.
Yeah.
So those are the 5 from the shows prior to
the new ones.
Prior to let's say the streaming era, right?
Yep.
You want to rank those 5 like you'd rank the shows, or does it just end up being the show rankings?
Actually, it'd be different.
Okay.
100% you'd be... Now, how do you want me to rank this? Like, overall good captain or my favorite captains?
Let's do both.
Okay, so overall captains, I would actually have to say it would be Jean-Luc Picard.
You think he's the most competent?
I believe he's, if you want a captain to pilot your flagship ship, it would be Jean-Luc Picard. Okay. 100%. If you want the best captain in the fleet, you get Jean-Luc Picard.
Okay.
After Jean-Luc Picard, I believe it would be Jonathan Archer. Would be my next pick.
Okay. He's played by Scott Bakula, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen Enterprise,
Quantum Leap, so
yeah, if you haven't seen Enterprise, I like Jonathan Archer. I believe he is a very good captain. He was early for his time as a captain, I believe. I think he would make a great captain in the same time frame as Jean-Luc Picard. Yeah. Then after that would be James T. Kirk.
Okay.
Then Benjamin Sisko, then Catherine Janeway.
Okay.
Yeah. The only reason why I put Catherine Janeway at the bottom was because if you're displaced in a different sector of your galaxy or universe, and it's gonna take you 80 years to get back.
Kind of a big F up.
It wasn't their fault.
Okay.
The reason why I put it there is because you would think you would want to go straight line, point A to point B, go right home, just max warp when you can, and then you've got to take a break, go to max impulse speed, and just keep going, right?
Yeah.
But no, this show, they go here, they go there, they go here, there.
They're
I'm like,
zigzagging everywhere.
why stop zigzagging? Just go straight,
Yeah.
right? And that's I don't know. For me, that's something that annoyed me the whole time. Like, why are you stopping? Like why are you going to check out these planets? Why are you checking this shit out? Why are you check? Like, it's going to take you 80 plus years to get home, and that's with max warp.
So let's get
Just start going. Like, what?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do here? This isn't like you're no longer like, yeah, I know you want to do your job and like whatever else. I'm like, damn, girl, like just go home.
It might be one of those things, and we had talked about it in the Squid Game episode with Ali, where it was like, there's no amount of money that would make me do something. So if you offer me 37 million or you offer me 8 billion, if I'm going to say no, I'm going to say no. And it might be one of those things where it's like, if it takes 80 years, it might as well take 1,000. We're not getting there in my lifetime.
Exactly,
so
right?
maybe
So
we'll just do the right
for her,
thing.
she just made it more like, okay, let's explore, let's document. So eventually when we do get home, they have all this information on this new sector.
Whenever the captain who succeeds me, and possibly even the captain who succeeds them, by the time we get home, they'll have this stuff.
100%. So I understand why she did, but it's just like, for me, man, just A to B, straight line, go.
Yeah, gun it. Let's go. Let's do this.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I've always talked about that the most interesting stories always can come from the most flawed characters.
Yeah.
So while we did just rank them in terms of competency, who are your favorites? Like, give me your top 5 in terms of your favorites.
Characters in general?
Yeah, in terms of just who you enjoy watching. Like, let's say you've got 5 doors and each one has like a story about each captain.
Oh, okay.
Which one are you going?
I think the first one would be Worf.
Okay.
So essentially, Worf is a Klingon who is a Starfleet, lieutenant. I believe he's a lieutenant, or is a junior lieutenant, something like that.
Worf, right, is his name. So
I believe he started off as a junior lieutenant, and then he got promoted to lieutenant, and then he's a security guy. So I think my first one would be Worf, only because like he's a fish out of water.
Right.
Essentially, he's a Klingon in Starfleet, which is very unheard of.
Yeah.
Klingons, as you know of, are a very warrior race.
Yes.
Right? Like for them, it's bloodshed, it's honor, it's glory, it's dying in battle, this and that. And he reflects that with the decisions he makes. He's a shoot first, answer later kind of guy.
Yeah.
But he also knows his spot. He knows when to ask questions. He knows when to this, when to that. So I think it'd be Worf. After that would be Quark. I don't know if you know who Quark is.
I'm not familiar. You'll have to do.
Quark is in Deep Space Nine. He is a Ferengi. He owns a bar.
Now I know who we're talking about.
He owns a bar.
Okay, I didn't know his name.
In Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
He is very entrepreneurial. He's very clever with this stuff. He loves to make latinum, which is aka money, which is very unheard of because usually there's no money, but there is latinum. There's a currency, and he finesses his way into the hearts of the people watching the show.
Okay.
You learn to love Quark. Like at first you're like, fuck man, I fucking hate Ferengis. Like this sucks. And then you're like, I love this dude. This guy is sly. This guy is good. He's hilarious. Right? So Quark is one of my favorites as well.
I haven't seen a lot of Deep Space Nine, but I almost kind of get the inkling when I've seen in sort of the clips and the times that I have seen Quark. All I can think of is he almost seems like he is the realized and the best case scenario for what the OG trilogy was trying to get with Watto.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
yeah, 100%. So after Quark, I think I would say it would be Jadzia Dax, which is also in Deep Space Nine. So all the characters so far are in Deep Space Nine, other than Worf, who's in TNG.
Yeah.
So Jadzia Dax is a Trill. So for those who don't know what a Trill is essentially a species who has a symbiote embedded in them.
Okay.
So that symbiote, when the host dies, they take that symbiote and they put it into another body. Okay. So essentially,
the symbiote is ever
living, and they have the memories of the person who precedes them or whatever else, right? So it's funny because Jadzia Dax, I believe not the one before her, but the one before that, was actually friends with a bunch of the original series Klingon characters and this and that, and they like to banter this and that. So she speaks Klingon. She's a really romantic interest to Worf, which is great.
Okay.
So there's all that, and the girl who plays her is beautiful as well. So let's see, Geordi.
Oh, Geordi.
I love Geordi. It was very good that they showed disability or someone with a disability who's actually capable. Not.
Yeah.
Like he's not in a like. How would I say that? He's
capable.
Not. He's 100% capable.
Yeah.
More capable than anybody else actually, because he uses his weakness as his strength, and he can actually see things that other people can't.
Yeah.
Right. So I think Geordi's great because how they fleshed him out as well was absolutely beautiful. And then my last one would be Data.
Oh, okay.
Data was a character, if you don't know him, he was always fascinated about how humans worked.
Because he was an android, right?
How they ticked. Yeah. And he always wanted to be like a human, right? There was an episode in TNG, which by far one of the top 3 episodes in all of Star Trek is Data the property of Starfleet, or is he his own person?
Is he his own autonomous being?
Yes. And it was literally a whole, like, it was a court scene, right? So I believe it was Riker who was the judge.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for Riker because he had to pass the judgment of, is he actually does he have his own life or is he property? Okay. And then Jean-Luc had to he was his defense lawyer. And
so they ran the trial or almost a debate.
It was great, dude. It's a very good episode. And it's weird because in the future when whatever robots are a little bit more sophisticated, that same conversation I'm assuming is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Yeah. So I think it's great. So those are my 5 who aren't like actual captains. But other than that, they're great characters.
Yeah. No, and it's always really interesting to hear that. And I think that that sort of world that Star Trek is in with all of these different races and everything, it's really, really interesting. And I do want to dive a little bit more into that. And I do want to see more. And like you said, like the Ferengi are a race I'm not at all familiar with other than that one guy. And I only see clips of him. And I really want to see that. So he's a Deep Space Nine guy.
Yeah,
right?
I'll tell you right now, like how they portrayed Ferengi in season 1, it's absolutely barbaric. They
evolve from
they portray them as like animals.
Okay.
Like they're like ape-like. They grunt. They're like they have electric whips. But then when you see them in Deep Space Nine, they're sophisticated. They're entrepreneurs.
You almost wonder if that's an act then. Or
here's
was it just a development of that.
It was a mess up on the writing side.
Okay.
Because the guy who actually plays Quark was one of the guys who played the original Ferengi, the whole ape-like, and he felt terrible about that. He's he felt so bad of how he portrayed and how they portrayed Ferengi as more of like an animalistic society, this and that.
Okay.
So he wanted to change that perspective in Deep Space Nine to a more entrepreneurial, very smart with money, very smart with numbers. Okay. So that's why he owns a bar and he's very good with what he does. And I think he perfected what a Ferengi is supposed to be like.
Okay. So you've been talking to you've got a favorite Klingon, or you've got a favorite character who's a Klingon, you've got a favorite character who's a Ferengi, right? You've got, you built your Borg deck.
Yes.
Right? Right? So maybe talk to me a little bit about that. What are some of your favorite races and ones that you enjoy in Star Trek, and maybe even just a rapid fire, like go over a quick race. Why do you like them? Why don't you? Or what resonates with them?
So let's see here. Starfleet, I wouldn't consider Starfleet as a race just because it has multiple hundreds of races in them.
Yep.
But Vulcans are great because they essentially have no emotion.
Yeah.
Right? And they tell you how it is.
It's all logical, right?
Yeah, very much logical. So they'll tell you what is the best case scenario and what is the right action to take.
I've been accused of being a Vulcan sometimes.
Right?
Every now and then.
Exactly, right? After Vulcans...
my ex-girlfriends.
You got Klingons, very warrior-like race, very much like Viking style. Honor, blood, kind of Spartan style as well. Yeah. Borg is more of the hive mind kind of thing. They're good. I like them as actual like enemies or whatever else, because like how can you fight something that has no feelings, that has no fear? It's really just goes at you like a zombie, right? Cardassians, they're very much like a authoritarian kind of society. They like to essentially conquer other worlds and steal their resources to make themselves better, right?
Okay, so almost like almost an allegory to like the ancient Mongolians. Almost,
just like that, actually.
Okay.
Bajorans are more of a essentially they're the people that got conquered by Cardassians and now they're fighting back. So they're more of the rebel kind of stuff. So like in Star Wars, they are like the Rebel Alliance.
Okay.
Like exactly like the Rebel Alliance.
Right.
The Q is essentially they're gods of the universe. Right?
I've seen a couple episodes.
They can do whatever the hell they want. And there's multiple you get to meet multiple Qs actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you get to meet multiple Qs. My favorite actually are the Romulans.
Oh, okay.
Essentially Romulans are the sister to Vulcans. So Vulcans and Romulans used to be the same thing, and then they split off.
That's what Nemesis is about, isn't it?
Yes. Okay. So Romulans essentially, Vulcans decided that their emotions were controlling them and they were a bad thing, so they had to suppress their emotions and just focus on logic and science and whatever else. Romulans, they didn't suppress their feelings. Okay. They actually embraced them. They made them actually like a Rome-like society. Okay. So their symbol is I believe, a bird with talons.
Okay.
So it's really their society is a 1-to-1 to what Rome was at its peak.
Okay.
Very militaristic, very secretive. There's a lot of like espionage, war. Like if you like cool war shit and like very like sneaky stuff, Romulans are the way to go.
Yeah.
And they have beautiful ships. They have, in my opinion, the most gorgeous ships out there. And then you have the Ferengi, which is the entrepreneurs, monopoly people of the universe of Star Trek. So, and in my opinion, the most hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, so they are a lot of comedic effect.
Oh, they're very much comical. Okay. Very much comical.
All right. Well, no, that's awesome to hear. And yeah, you know what? You've got me excited about Star Trek. I think I am going to dig into DS9 a little bit. And
honestly, if you watch the first episode of DS9, there is so much emotion. Like the first episode alone is going to hit you like a truck. Okay. It's going to hit you like, because you deal with loss, you deal with pain, you deal with acceptance, you deal with a father's love to his son, you deal with essentially being stuck in a new place that you actually have to work and this and that, and the centrifuge of a previous war that you actually have to try and figure out how to work through, right? So like that first episode is going to put you through a roller coaster, but like you understand the big picture of what DS9 is just from like the first episode or the first two episodes. I think you'll really like it.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of Star Trek? Like, do we want to talk about sort of the pop culture impact or anything?
Honestly, in regards to the pop culture aspect of it, like every time you see someone with a red shirt, like they're usually the first one to die.
And that's you know what? It was shocking. I was thinking about this today, even just before we were going to record, and I was thinking about the amount of things that we just sort of talk about whose roots come from Star Trek is kind of amazing. Like when you talk about live long and prosper, revenge is a dish best served cold. That is a Star Trek quote, right? Even some beam me up, Scotty.
There's a lot of references.
We don't have the power. Like all of those things are all Star Trek.
And you see them in a lot of like sci-fi movies and TV shows. They love to borrow that stuff. Why? Because it's going to hit home for a lot of people.
It's amazing just how influential Star Trek is, and it's right there with Star Wars, and it feels like it's right there, but it doesn't quite get the cultural zeitgeist that Star Wars does.
Yeah, because I'm assuming it's because Star Wars was more movie based, and it had the big picture. It had
the big blockbusters,
stuff. Where Star Trek was more of the family get together at home. It was more of the in your living room kind of experience. It wasn't really big motion picture. They had huge motion pictures, don't get me wrong, but it was more of the let's sit around the TV after dinner and watch Star Trek kind of thing.
And their TV shows always did relatively well, but they were never they weren't Seinfeld, they weren't The Simpsons, they weren't Friends, right? So they weren't as sort of immediately impactful in the TV world as Star Wars was in the movie world. But yeah, like over the course of, I mean, we're looking starting in 66. I mean, if I do my math right, that's 55 years. Like it has made its mark, and
it's a long time running for that show.
It has,
time, and it's still running really strong.
Yeah,
really strong.
Like we've got that new streaming era, and those shows look interesting too. Like I said, I saw the first season of Discovery, and I think I might dive into Deep Space Nine before I continue with Discovery.
I think you should watch. I think you would enjoy Deep Space Nine a lot more than you would Discovery, even though Discovery's brand new. You've
sold me on it, and the thing is, if there is any sort of technological aging, it's in the era where I was in junior high and high school, so that's not going to bother me. So I think Deep Space Nine is the direction I'm going to go.
And like one thing that you'll notice right away with Deep Space Nine is that you see the aging of the technology.
Yeah.
But after a while, you absolutely forget about it.
Really?
You actually you forget about. I'm like, this show was made how long ago? I'm like, it's 22 this is good. Old. Like you don't think that it was made a long time ago. You get so focused with it. It just blurs in with everything else. Yeah, and that's what makes a good TV show. If you can't see the flaws in regards to that time of filming and editing, it's a good show.
Yeah, TNG, I didn't see anything. It did not. It has aged incredibly well.
Oh, very much so.
So I would imagine the newer show would be very much in that same vein.
Also, everything on Netflix, I believe they switched it from what originally was to, I believe, HD.
Oh, so they scaled it up.
So they actually scaled it up, so it looks a lot better, which actually it's great.
Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. Was there anything else? Any other ideas you wanted to give us on this?
Other than that, honestly, if you want to get into Star Trek, just start somewhere.
Yeah.
That's it. End of the day, start somewhere. You don't need to follow my list. You don't need to go to anyone else's list on the internet. Just find it on Netflix and hit play.
What looks good, just jump in.
Yeah, because no matter what, you're gonna learn what Star Trek is from any show. It doesn't matter what show it is. You'll learn it from any show. If you really want to get fun with it, you can literally just start off with the new ones. Really, if you don't really want to watch the old stuff right away, because you want to kind of get into Star Trek first, watch the new stuff.
Try Discovery, and then maybe if that
go on from there.
If that hooks you, go backwards.
Yeah, right. Cool. That's what I did. I started with new stuff, went back to the old stuff, and then went back to the new stuff, and now now
you're caught up.
Now I'm all caught up. So,
oh man, well, I got to tell you, this has been real educational and really, really fun. I have, it's been fun being on this side of the microphone as well. I mean, not just talking Star Trek, but just also discussing this on this side of the microphone.
Oh, hell yeah.
And questioning you. I hope that we can do this again. I mean, how was it? How was this feeling?
I actually liked it. I actually like being more on the relaxed end of it and just answering questions and whatever else. I do think that we would have a lot more fun doing Q&As with just each other. So if I do a Q&A to you and vice versa and just have fun, or even with Noslin here, I think it's good. I like it. It's chill.
All right. Awesome. I'm glad you had a good time. I hope this isn't the last time we do this. Caramel Thunder, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Caramel Thunder, Caramel with 2 L's. Where can they find you?
You can find me at Coast Dynasty on Instagram. That is COASTDY Nasty. Collectively, you can find the three of us at Unhinged Vibes. The third member of our team, you can find him at Noslin69ers. That is his name, Nelson backwards 69ers. I think there's an underscore.
There's an underscore, I believe, at the end of it.
At the end, so don't forget that, or else you'll get the other Noslin 69ers apparently. So
yeah.
But until next time.
Yeah, until next time, thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Unhinged Vibes podcast. Oh, also, have a safe holiday season coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Christmas and your holiday season's just around the corner. I believe it's not this week, it's next week. So please be safe. Do not drink and drive. Call a taxi. Call a friend if you need to. Other than that, we love you guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.
Live long and prosper, everybody.